Hi, welcome to Toby Crine's WordPress Doctor. My name's Toby. We are going to try a thing where we're going to do a weekly podcast here where we answer all of your business and WordPress related questions. I've been doing WordPress and consulting in WordPress and small business and nonprofit world for over 15 years, going on 20 years now. So hopefully we can help you out and get you to the next place. Let's get started. First question. I updated my homepage, but the changes I made don't display. It's as if I did nothing. Yeah, we've all been there. Um, WordPress is particularly interesting in this regard. This is the common scenario. Hey, I changed some copy. Maybe I changed a few words on the page or added an image. Looks fine. I save it, looks fine. And then my spouse pulls it up on their computer and it looks like I did nothing. It looks like it used to look. The issue there is almost always a caching problem. Usually, most WordPress sites will have, if they're using cache, they'll have a button somewhere in there that says clear cache. If you click that and it still doesn't fix it, you should go to make sure you clear your browser cache, of course. And then also, sometimes it gets caught on the server, and there are a number of points where it can get caught on the server. Where the cache isn't clearing properly, and to do that, usually there's a button or two or three on the server that you have to click, and then if that doesn't fix the issue, then it could be in the CDN level. So for example, if you're using Cloudflare or another CDN, you can log into them and clear it, and if you clear all those things, then it should fix it. When I submit my question number two. Question number two. When I submit my web form, it seems to work, but I don't receive the email notification. This is one of the most frustrating things one of the more frustrating things I deal with on a regular basis. And so the idea is, hey, people are filling out my contact form. It says it went through, but I don't see the emails. They're not in my spam folder. Usually this means, in most cases, it means that the email is getting caught in an email spam filter somewhere above the place where your spam filter lives. So there are times when Google marks something as spam and it doesn't even land in the folder. It's like just gone. And that happens regularly. The way to test this is there's a number of plugins for WordPress where it's like email checker, email tester, and you can use it to send yourself test emails. If you receive those and they land in your spam, that usually means that the issue is in your email spam, and usually it's a layer up, like I said. So there's something going on where it's flagging that email form as spam. The way to fix it, usually a plugin like SMTP Pro or one of those plugins where you can directly connect to your inbox via SMTP, usually that will fix those issues. Sometimes you'll need to add an SPF record to your DNS, and usually some combination of those things will get it done. But if not, then you could have a PHP like server issue where it's not sending email properly. In the old days, we used to, and this still happens sometimes, but a lot less now. But if there's like a 0MX record on your DNS where sometimes that would be an issue where it would cause this issue. Like basically you have an MX record that you're not using, and then that causes problems. Question number 3. How do I improve my website SEO? This is a very big, broad topic. The question is, how do I generate more leads for my business through SEO? And by the way, there are lots of ways to generate leads for your business that have nothing to do with your website SEO or even the internet. Going to your chamber of commerce, giving a talk, that sort of thing, going to a local networking thing. These are all great ways to generate leads, and the SEO is just another way to do that. But there's a number of plugins. I would start with a basic plugin like Yoast. It's a free plugin. It's widely used. It's not super feature rich, but it'll get you started. And at the end, you plug it in, you turn it on, or you add the plugin, you turn it on, activate it, and it'll give you some options. You just basically activate the options, and it'll do some very basic stuff that should help a little bit. It's not really going to help you improve your Google rankings. It'll just show you, it'll improve how it looks in Google. Um, it'll also help you um, at how you display in search or how you display in social media. It'll kind of help with that a little bit. Um, there are other more robust plugins. If you do the paid version of Yoast, you get more features. I think I can't remember how they break it down, but like there's local video, there's all these add-ons for Yoast that cost more and more money. There's also lots of competitors. The one that I like to use is Smart Crawl Pro through WP Dev. And that has all the features built in, but it's pricey. You know, you pay, I don't know, $50 or $100 a year for that. But the question is, how do I improve my SEO? Um, this is really about content and content strategy. And so, without going too deep, the general idea is you need to figure out or guess what people are searching for when they're looking for your service. So, let's say you're a local bakery and people are searching for cupcakes in Minneapolis, for example. You might want a page that says, like, best cupcakes in Minneapolis might be the page title, and then you're going to write all about how your cupcakes are the best in Minneapolis. And you know, the idea is that sort of content will help Google help people find you. So like if someone types, I want the best, what are the best cupcakes in Minneapolis, hopefully that page will rank, or at least it should have a better chance of ranking than, you know, similar content on a similar website without those words. So that's the general idea. Now, of course, you can spend thousands of dollars a month, and many businesses do, just in building SEO. The Mighty Mo, the company I own, we have a whole department that does SEO. You know, we have a person full time working on our SEO right now. We have, you know, and he's helping people with their SEO, and it's not cheap, but it can really be fruitful in terms of generating leads and closing deals. Question number 4. I received an email from Google Search Console saying there's an error. How do I fix it? This is one of the more annoying things that every SEO person deals with, every SEO pro. Google will send you a message saying, we found an SEO error on your website, and they'll give you some like vague, you know, description of what it is. And what'll happen is you'll get that, you'll send it to your SEO person, or if you don't have an SEO person, you'll be clicking around for a long time. Probably you'll never figure out what it is. Usually these are false positives, and usually you can ignore these and just delete the email. I would guess, in my experience, 99% of the time, it's just a thing where you delete the email. But the other 1% of the time, you have to go to Google Search Console and click around a bit, and usually you'll figure out what it is. And you know, usually it has to do with like a sitemap error. You know, maybe you have to upgrade or upload your sitemap link again, or I'm sorry, ask Google to recrawl your sitemap, or maybe like it found a 404 error because you deleted a page, and you know, usually it's some little thing. And frankly, usually it's doesn't really matter because the pages that you care about are being well cared for, and you know, that sort of thing. So, you know, pay attention to those emails, but I wouldn't as long as you're still ranking in Google for stuff, it's usually not a big deal. Question number 5. My WordPress says there are 15 updates to make. What should I do? Yeah, so in WordPress, there's a little like recycle arrow thing in the top left that will tell you like, hey, there's stuff here, that software that needs to be updated. And this is really good because WordPress makes it really easy to update software. And part of that, many of those updates are security patches. So, you know, I always recommend do it with one caveat. Make sure you have a backup before you do it. And a lot of hosting providers allow you to make backups. There are plugins for this. And there are lots of plugins. Lots of them are free. There's lots of paid plugins. But bottom line, make sure you have a good backup and then click the button. I should say, you know, have a plan. Let's say, because oftentimes you'll click that update button and the whole site will come down. And so you just want to have a plan for when that happens. You know, if you click the button, the site goes down, you call, you know, Janie, your WordPress developer, you know, or you email Toby or whatever it is. Just make sure you have a plan for when that website goes down. Or, you know, lots of companies now, including the Mighty Mo, like we have monthly service plans where we will just take care of this for you. There'll be no downtime. We manage these updates in a really careful way and thoughtful way. So if you want to do it yourself, just make sure you have a backup. If you don't want to do it yourself, you can just hire someone to do it, and they'll, you know, if you hire a reputable company or person to do it, you know, it'll just work out well. Um, question number 6. What's the difference between a plugin and a theme? Ah, this is a classic question. So WordPress has what's called plugins. They have what's called themes. They also have WordPress core. In addition to that, they have the server, and on the server, there's a bunch of software. All of this is software. I always think of WordPress as your operating system. So, like on your phone, you have either Android or iOS. That's your WordPress. On your phone, you have apps. Those are your plugins, and then you can choose like a design. Sometimes that's your theme. With WordPress, your WordPress core is the software, your operating system. It ships with like users, posts, pages, menus, and a few other things. And for most people, that's enough. You really don't need many more plugins or any plugins, really, a lot of times. Um, but most people want a contact form. WordPress doesn't ship with a contact form, so you need a plugin. You just install, Contact Form 7 or a plugin of your choice that's a contact form, and then you can have a contact form on your site. So that's a plugin. If you want to change the whole design of your site, that's a theme. So WordPress ships with a default theme. It's 2024, so the default theme right now is 2024. They've been shipping a new theme every year, I think since 2012, no, 20, maybe 2010, I can't remember. But it's been a long time since every year they ship a new theme with WordPress. So you install WordPress, it works. You don't like the design of it or you want a different design, get a new theme. That's the theme. Question number 7. WordPress is telling me my version of PHP is out of date. What should I do? That means that's a server problem. So you would either need to contact your hosting company and let them know that WordPress is telling you this, and then they'll instruct you on next steps. By the way, oftentimes hosting companies give you horrible advice when you bring them this sort of problem. I feel like the people at hosting companies, one of two things is happening. They're either just trying to upsell you. So like you'll call them with a problem like this, and they'll be like, okay, we're going to need to switch you to the VPS plan at like $100 a month or $200 a month, and da 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 da. And you're like, okay, I guess so. You're the expert. So either they're trying to upsell you, or they just don't have any clue what they're talking about. Because in most hosting companies, switching PHP is just a matter of clicking the mouse, and now you have the new PHP. So step 1, contact your host. Just let them know you want a more recent version of PHP. Um, if you don't like their answer, find a different. You could ask me, ask anyone. PHP gets out of date really quick, actually, and they don't support. I think they support like 2 dot releases back. Like so PHP is always out of date. Um, One thing to know is sometimes you'll upgrade PHP and stuff on your site will break. Even though WordPress core does a really good job of keeping up with PHP updates. However, plugins, you might have some bad luck there. So just something to be aware of. When you upgrade PHP, test your site. If something breaks, then you might need to, like let's say your slider plugin breaks when you go to the newest version of PHP. Then you have to make a decision. Do I keep the slider and the new version of PHP, or do I keep the old version of PHP and the slider? And that's kind of, and you can find people that can help you navigate those situations as well. People like me or other freelancers or agencies. Question number 8. My backups are not working. What should I do? Uh, Almost 100% of the time, the issue with a broken backup, where you click, let's say you're using Backup Buddy or one of those other backup plugins, and you're getting an error saying we couldn't make a backup. Almost always the problem is that the site is too big for the server to handle. So you click backup, and let's say there's 100 megabytes of data. Sometimes your hosting provider cannot process that amount of data, because what it does is all of the plugins, with a few exceptions that back up to the cloud, pretty much every WordPress plugin will make a huge zip file of however big your site plus database is. And I had a customer once with a 1 gigabyte database, so there's no way this plugin is going to work, because PHP just can't handle that unless you do some special stuff. So what you need to do in a case like that is find a cloud backup provider. And I'm thinking like Managed WP, Jetpack. There's a few others, but I've had good luck with both Managed WP and Jetpack. But a cloud provider can almost always do it, because what they'll do is take little chunks at a time and just back it up a little bit at a time until it's all backed up. Very similar to how like Mac Time Machine works. That's how those things work. So that's your best bet, is to switch to one of those cloud backup providers. Also, if you don't want to do that, oftentimes your host is already making backups for you. If your host is not making backups, you might want to consider switching hosts. And by backups, I mean nightly WordPress backups, not server backups. So, like all the big hosts provide a managed WordPress plan where you get nightly backups. And if you don't, go to a different host, because they certainly, the big GoDaddy has them. I'm not saying GoDaddy or Bluehost are great hosts, but I think they both provide this kind of out of the box, so long as you ask for that specific managed WordPress plan. What happens a lot of times is people don't know to ask for the managed WordPress plan, and they'll call the host. They'll be like, "What should I get?" And they'll put them on a plan that's not managed WordPress. It boggles my mind, because I'm like, this is such an obvious like, why wouldn't you put them on there? But they don't. They put them on a plan without the backups, and so oftentimes if you call your host and you tell them this, they will just like migrate you free of charge, or hopefully free of charge. But oftentimes they will migrate it for you, even for a small fee. So that's where I would go, what I would do if the backups weren't working. Question 9, having trouble changing the background color of mobile drop-down menu. Oh yeah, okay. So your menu looks great on desktop, but on mobile it looks weird. Like you just want to change the color, or really any stylistic thing, maybe the width. This question depends on what options are available in your theme, really. So WordPress has a menu system out of the box, but the menu system doesn't really handle the styling of it. That's handled by the theme. So oftentimes themes will give you some style options, and so that's the first place I'd look. I'd go to like appearance, customize, and see if there are options there, or if the theme has like a menu item, check that. If there are no clickable options for selecting color, then you're stuck with writing custom CSS. As far as CSS goes, this is pretty basic stuff, but you kind of need to know code. It's not for like, if you don't already know CSS, you're going to get stuck really quickly. And so if there's not a button and you don't know code, you're probably going to have to call somebody to help you, an agency or the Mighty Mo or whatever. Question 10. What's best for my lawn maintenance business website? Wix, WordPress, or Squarespace? This is a neat question. I like this question because it's business oriented, and you just need a website. And lawn maintenance, you probably just need a contact form. You need it to be listed in Google. All three will do that. Wix, WordPress, Squarespace, they all will do that. They'll let you create pages, contact form. And if you want to do it cheaply, and let's say you're just starting and you're like, I just want a website. I don't want to overthink this. I'm going to have a few pages. I would probably go with Wix or Squarespace, because they're going to have a lot of these features just built into the default template, like the contact form will be built in. So I would probably go there. Now, you're going to run into issues 3 months, 6 months, a year down the road, where you're going to be like, I need to do this special thing with SEO, and it turns out I want a different type of contact form that's not a basic form. Maybe you want to like have a drop down that does, say, what's your zip code, or, maybe you want one of those maps where you can do something special. Wix and Squarespace are not going to be able to do those things, without probably embedding from another site. And that kind of begs the question, well, I wish I had WordPress in that scenario. So by the way, you can always migrate from Wix and Squarespace to WordPress, or vice versa. Or, these platforms make it really easy to go back and forth. So in this case, let's say you just like, it's just me. I'm a one-person shop. I mow lawns in my neighborhood, and I just want a quick site. I would probably do Wix or Squarespace. But if you're looking to start a bigger business, or if you're an existing company with a website, I probably wouldn't recommend Wix or Squarespace in those scenarios, because you're already going to be at a point where you need WordPress if you're established and mature as a business. Question 11. We built our WordPress site ourselves. Everyone says WordPress is easy, but it seems like we are always stuck. Are we just not very tech savvy? Is WordPress just not that easy? Do we need to hire a website designer to help us? So this is a very real scenario. WordPress is by far the most widely used software, and it has a reputation for being really easy. Easy to set up, easy to use, da 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 da. But honestly, it's not that easy. And I've taught many WordPress classes and helped many businesses, and I can tell you definitively, it's not easy. um, for a certain person with a certain experience and skill set, yeah, it can be relatively easy compared to other things. Um, but it's really not super intuitive, especially when I say like we were talking earlier, oh, you want a contact form? You need to know how to install a plugin, then you need to configure the form, and it's not super intuitive as to how that works, and the form has notifications and all these things. It gets pretty complex pretty quick. And also consider as you lay out, let's say you build a site and you're like, and this is probably a problem with Wix and Squarespace as well, but hey, I like how this is laid out, but I want to move this image over here. That can be really tricky if you're not, depending on the theme you're using, and even some of the builder themes, you kind of have to learn how to do it, even though once you learn it, it's super easy. But I'm thinking Beaver Builder or Elementor, it's not super intuitive. You still have to learn it. So no, you're not, the person who asked the question, it's not easy. You might need to hire a designer if the site isn't looking how you want it to look and functioning how you want it to function. Yeah, the answer is yes. The alternative is you're going to have to learn a lot. And all the information's out there, by the way, and I encourage anybody with the appetite, go learn it. It's fun. I mean, I made a career of it. I love it. It's fun. You learn a lot. You feel empowered to do stuff. So I recommend, if you want to learn it, go learn it. It's all there. There's nothing secret about it. It's all on YouTube. Everything's free on YouTube. You can just go learn it. So, but if the thought of learning a ton of stuff is not appealing, then yeah, just hire someone to do it. Question number 12. How do I search for a good WordPress developer for designing and developing my WordPress site? Yeah, this is tricky. What is a good WordPress developer? I think the number one quality, you might want some combination of these two probably, or maybe these three things. You want someone who's available, who responds to your questions in a timely manner, who answers the phone, responds to emails, So that's number one. And you can learn that, at least get a sense really quick. You can certainly exclude some people. Let's say you emailed 5 potential developers you found on Google in your local area, and 2 of them didn't respond. 1 of them took a week to respond. I would just cut those off the list if it's me, because I really care about the communication piece. So now you're down to 2, and you go, then you kind of do what you have to do with all online things. You look at their Google reviews, you go to their LinkedIn. You just kind of have, maybe if you're on a local Facebook group or a forum somewhere, you can ask about that specific company and say, hey, has anyone used this company at all? Nextdoor would be a good place to ask too. You could ask that. Now I'm thinking you could ask on nextdoor.com or a similar neighborhood site. Be like, does anyone know a good WordPress developer? Like anything, it's luck of the draw at that point. Let's say you cross all those, you found a guy, that man or woman or child that meets all my criterion, and then you just give it a try. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, then find someone else. Question 13. What is the best WordPress theme to make a WordPress website for a very small business, like a yarn shop? So I'm guessing this person has a yarn shop, which I love yarn shops, by the way. We have one in our neighborhood here, and I love yarn shops. I don't even sew, but I go in there every now and then with my wife or daughter, and it's nice. I don't know. I don't know why I love a yarn shop, but I do. There's something about I like. I didn't know there were so many types of yarn. But let's say the question is, what's the best WordPress theme? So let's, if the default theme works for you, go with that. because this is really a question of skill set. If you don't really know what you're doing, just go with the default theme and do the best you can. There's going to be tons of tutorials for it on the internet and YouTube, so you're going to have tons of resources that way. But if I were like had a little more skill or a little more time and was building this site, not me, but if I was the business owner, you might look at Wix and Squarespace and similar sites, and maybe that's a good place to start. But you might choose like a builder theme. Now, I personally prefer Beaver Builder, but there's like Elementor, WP Bakery, and Divi. And I personally find Beaver Builder to be the easiest. I find Divi to be the second easiest. I'm not saying everybody has their preferences here, but Divi is going to be the most affordable, I think. And so, just all these things play into it. But that's kind of where I would start. Question 14, is WordPress good for big websites? I dropship auto parts and I have 80,000 SKUs. So the question here, yes, WordPress can handle 80,000 SKUs. That's not the issue. I've managed WordPress sites with that many SKUs before. WooCommerce can do it. The question isn't the number of SKUs. The question is how many visitors and how many checkouts per day or per minute are you going to have? Because that's what's going to crash your site, not the number of SKUs. So, for example, I helped a company that had 3 SKUs, and there was a WooCommerce site. The site was crashing constantly with only 3 SKUs. And the issue was they were just getting too many sales. And the solution in that case was, after a lot of trial and error, we just switched to Shopify, and that solved all the problems. So the problem wasn't SKUs, it wasn't the size of the site, it was the size of, or the number of purchases that were happening. And that's a good problem to have. So I would have no problem starting with WordPress 80,000 SKUs, and then if it starts crashing, that probably means that you have a lot of purchases, and maybe it's time to think of a new solution at that point. Question number 15. My website is scoring a 4 on Google Pagespeed. How do I speed up my site? So just so you know, this is 1 out of 100 is the metric on Google Pagespeed. 4 is extremely low. I have experienced multiple sites that score that low, some even lower than a 4. There's a number of places to start. Let's just focus on Google Pagespeed, because Google Pagespeed doesn't actually do a great job of measuring the user experience. You can have a site that seems really fast to the average user and loads really fast, but scores really low on Google Pagespeed, and I've experienced those situations. Those are situations where the server has a lot of resources and you're able to really pump out websites to people really fast, but Google thinks it's slow because of the way Google calculates their thing. But it's Google, so we got to care about it. And you're scoring a 4. So let's say your site is really fast, but it's still scoring a 4. Usually, well, first of all, you load up Google Pagespeed in sites and put the URL in, and then it'll tell you what's wrong. And it'll tell you like, hey, largest contentful paint took 20 seconds, and the server time, load time is this and that. So there's all these different metrics in there. Usually I first focus on the largest contentful paint, because usually if that's really slow, it means it's usually like an image issue or something we can fix just by like kind of tweaking little things in that area. And so, for example, I've had situations where, I was loading an image, some text, and maybe some buttons, and Google was having a hard time like kind of determining what counted on largest contentful paint. And we solved it just by like kind of adjusting the window of that top area, and that solved a lot of the Google page speed problems in terms of largest contentful paint. Switching WordPress themes can have a huge impact. I have a whole page on my website that's the longest page on my website where I do all these tests from Divi to Beaver Builder 2024, I'm comparing all these things like in an apples to apples way, and the theme has a big impact. So it's just like, hey, this is just how the theme loads, and it's way more efficient than that theme. So sometimes that helps. If you have, you could try deactivating plugins. Sometimes there's a plugin that's hogging resources and slowing everything down. So that's something to look at. Sometimes it's a security plugin. Sometimes it's a caching plugin that's supposed to be speeding up your site. And so you can disable plugins and run the test again, see how if it improves. One of the things they always say in there is, make sure you're loading the proper image sizes. And part of that is, if you have a current theme, it most likely is loading proper image sizes. And then you can also load those as what they call next generation formats. But basically, you can install a plugin that usually it's a caching plugin, or like WP Rocket does this, where they will, no, WP Rocket doesn't. But there are plugins. I think Imagify is WP Rocket's image optimization plugin. There's a couple others that are really good too. But you can basically, it converts all your JPEGs and PNGs to WebP, and WebP is more efficient than JPEGs and PNGs, and so that can save time too and improve your score. So this is kind of a deep question in terms of how do I improve page speed, but that's where I'd start. Start with the plugins, image optimizations, tweak the largest contentful paint area, maybe make it bigger. And we're only looking at mobile, by the way. Google has said that the desktop score doesn't matter. They said that only the mobile score matters. So when I talk about this, I'm only talking about mobile. Let me know how it goes. Question 16. Can I put 5,000 pages on my WordPress website? Yeah, this is the same as above that we talked about with the 80,000 SKUs. Absolutely. Put 5,000 pages on your WordPress website. If you start getting a lot of traffic, well, then you might have problems, but probably not even. If you really need, if you just have pages and you're not doing e-commerce or something with like an LMS or something, you can WordPress in a basic server can really handle a ton of traffic in those scenarios. What's the best way, question 17, what's the best way to get started creating a website through WordPress for my guitar shop? Oh, interesting. So you're selling, I'm guessing you don't sell a lot of guitars online. Let's say you have 100 guitars that you're going to put on your website. I don't know, maybe 1,000 guitars. That are going to be listed. You're going to use WooCommerce, and it'll be able to handle it fine. Because you're not going to be selling a lot of guitars. Even if you sold one a day, that's online. Maybe that's a good day. I don't know. Even if you sold 10 online, that's a good day maybe. And WordPress can handle that. So, choose a theme. Choose a theme that makes sense. Depending on your skill set and the design of it. And then I would use WooCommerce, hook WooCommerce up to Stripe or PayPal or both or whatever you want to do. And you can be rocking and rolling pretty quickly. One thing to consider too, anytime someone brings up e-commerce, I always bring Shopify into the conversation. Shopify is like the hosted WordPress for e-commerce. It has a lot of downsides to it because it's nowhere near as easy to edit as WordPress when you talk about editing pages, adding features. It's kind of janky in how the features all work together. So Shopify has a lot of cons, but if your primary thing is selling products, it's at least worth adding to the conversation. But nonetheless, WordPress is a great way to go for basic e-commerce like that. I would certainly, if I were doing it, I would use WordPress because I know WordPress, and it would be great. Question 18. My website was hacked last year. What steps can I take to secure my site moving forward? Great question here. I would start with make sure you have solid backups happening nightly, like I said earlier in this YouTube conversation here. Make sure you have a backup plugin. Make sure those backups are going to a cloud location. So you can have a backup plugin that makes automatic backups to the cloud, meaning it does it like little part by little part. Managed WP, Jetpack, they do this for a monthly fee. Um, or you can have a WordPress plugin like Backup Buddy or Updraft Plus that makes a backup locally and then allows you to push it to the cloud, meaning like it pushes it to your Amazon's, your Google Drive or your Amazon or your wherever. Make sure you're making solid. Make sure you're making solid backups to the cloud either way. Um, so make sure you have a backup. Start there. Now you have a backup going. Install WordFence and run. It has like an intense mode, a basic mode. Do the most intense mode you can initially, and then dial it back a little bit. In WordFence, there's an option to throttle traffic. I always set that. Even a little, even if I set it at a really high threshold, that's something. It's worth starting there. Make sure review your logins, your users, who currently has access to the website. Can you delete any of those users? Do they all need to be admin, or can some be subscribers or authors or editors? So start to kind of control who can access the site, how they access it. You can move the login. There's a lot of plugins that let you disable the default login and put it on a different page, so that can be helpful. And some of these plugins, like SiteGround has a plugin that will kind of walk you through some of these options, and it'll kind of help do some of these things. So, the SiteGround security plugin, that's a good plugin. In addition to WordFence, they'll work together and they do different things. So definitely start there. I also like using Cloudflare. Cloudflare sits at the DNS level, and this might be getting too deep, for the average business owner, but you can find someone to help you with this, like the Mighty Mo. But we help people with this all the time, where what we do is we're filtering for bad traffic before it even hits the server. And so the idea is, and a lot of times we'll block known state sponsors of terrorism like Russia and Iran. We'll just say, if you're coming from Russia and Iran, we're just going to block you. And that's good for almost all of our customers. There's one customer of ours that, they're an academic institution type of place, and they wanted, they have legitimate conversations with people in some of these countries like Iran and Russia. So we're not blocking traffic for that particular one. But for most of our sites, we'll just block the traffic from Iran, Belarus, and stuff like that, where there's a pretty high likelihood that if someone's coming from there, for our customers' websites, which are primarily U.S. based, and that those visitors from those countries probably are up to no good. That's kind of the assumption we make. And there's probably some false positives in there where we're blocking some legitimate traffic, but not a lot is my guess. And so those are some ways to get started with security. The main thing that you should do is keep those plugins and themes and WordPress core up to date. Press that circle button, update everything. Like we said earlier, make regular backups and have a plan in case the site crashes during one of those upgrade processes. Question 19, what are WordPress plugins? Oh, we already talked about this one. WordPress plugins are, so if you think about WordPress as your operating system for your website, it's your iOS or your Android. On top of that, you have plugins, which are your apps. So the plugins do things, they add functionality that your site didn't already have out of the box. And then you have your WordPress themes, which change the design. So that's it. Basically, if you need something other than post pages, users, like a login, then you're going to need plugins. So last question here. What's the best way to sell a book on WordPress? I have a number of customers that sell books on WordPress. The reality is that in my case, for my customers who have, usually they're business people or nonprofits that have a book. I do have one customer, it's a nonprofit they're a book publisher and they sell many books. So they're a bit different use case because they're just an e-commerce store effectively. But let's say you're a consultant and you have a book. That's the most common use case. And most of my customers, and I recommend this, they just link to their Amazon stuff or their Goodreads or whatever. They link to places where the book is sold. And, Amazon these days will actually print the book and mail it. And so that's oftentimes the way that, these freelancers and consultants sell their books, is they just sell them on Amazon, and then we link to that. And we'll build a page. It'll, be a full page with a big description and all that, but ultimately Amazon's handling the transaction, so that's what we do. So I hope you like this. We're going to do these weekly for a while and see what the reaction is. Again, if you want to submit a question, we would love to answer it on our next podcast, which will be next week. You can go look in the description for the link to do that. On that, this is Toby, the WordPress Doctor. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you.